welcome back to your Superbly Said Advanced English Vocabulary and Phrases. And just real quick, you can go to SpeakDuo.com to meet new people from around the world who are practicing English on video calls to become more confident with their English speaking abilities.
Yes, absolutely. And the submitted material today is a SpeakDuo lesson plan titled Getting a Laugh, How to Make Something Funny, which pairs comedic concepts with advanced English vocabulary exercises.
The lesson's central theme of comedy gets significantly diluted by disjointed practice examples that abandon the core subject.
Yeah, the weakness here is just, it's immediately apparent when you read through it.
Right.
Because the title is Getting a Laugh, and the first few examples are great. They focus on comedy, like narrowing down joke responses, fulfilling a premise, facing a comedic dilemma.
It sets up this really immersive stage.
Exactly. But then the practice questions just abruptly shift to these totally unrelated, mundane scenarios.
It's jarring.
It is. You go from discussing punchlines to suddenly asking about moving to Japan for a blank slate.
Or packing extra shoes as a rule of thumb.
Right, or ordering chicken from a restaurant menu. It just completely breaks the immersion and disrupts that conceptual through line for the learner.
You can see why they did it. I mean, trying to make the vocabulary relatable to everyday life.
Sure, but it makes the lesson feel totally fragmented.
So the suggestion here is to realign all of the practice prompts so they remain strictly anchored to the established comedic or performing arts context.
Yes, keeping it in that world.
Exactly.
Ensuring the entire document feels like a cohesive, single-topic masterclass. Right, so for concrete examples, take the phrase to narrow down.
Instead of talking about ordering food from a big menu,
Change the prompt to ask how a comedian might narrow down their set list for a really specific audience.
oh, that's much better. And for a rule of thumb, instead of packing shoes, ask the learner to describe a comedian's rule of thumb for handling a tough crowd.
Yeah, keeping that thematic consistency acts as a memory hook for advanced learners.
Which leads us right into the interactive portions. The instructions provided for the breakout room segments lack the necessary pedagogical scaffolding to consistently generate dynamic student conversation.
This is such a common weakness in language materials. The current prompt for the breakout rooms basically just says, discuss the previous expressions with your partners.
Which is just, it's a blank slate approach.
It really is. It assumes students will just naturally know how to weave complex idioms like an off-limits subject or to gauge a reaction into this organic dialogue.
And without a situational anchor, you just get dead air.
Agonizing dead air. Two people staring at webcams or just reading the definitions out loud to each other.
So the suggestion is to introduce targeted, scenario-based role-play prompts immediately preceding the breakout room slides.
Yes. Give them a structured narrative sandbox to play in.
Exactly. Provide a scenario where the two students have to plan a slightly controversial comedy routine together.
That's a great concrete example. It forces them to actively debate what constitutes an off-limits subject.
Right. And they have to plan how they're going to gauge a reaction from the crowd.
Or you could assign roles. Make one student the performer and the other an unimpressed audience member.
Oh, I like that. Prompting them to use the vocabulary to review the performance.
Yeah, the dramatic tension is just built right into the exercise then.
But to do that role play well, they need to truly understand the words. The vocabulary definitions are functionally accurate, but miss a crucial opportunity to guide advanced learners on the contextual register and tone of the idioms.
This is a huge weakness for advanced materials. The document gives these very straightforward, literal definitions.
Like defining a rule of thumb as just a practical and approximate guideline.
Right, or to hit hard as a strong emotional impact, but it doesn't specify if these are formal, informal, professional, or casual.
Which is only half the battle for fluency. You have to know when and where it's appropriate to use a phrase.
Exactly. The suggestion is to enhance the definitions by explicitly noting the conversational tone, professional appropriateness, or emotional weight of each expression.
And we can do that by comparing them to similar alternatives. Let's run through some concrete examples of how to rewrite these.
Let's start with a rule of thumb. You need to note that this is highly conversational and informal.
Right. Contrast it with something like standard operating procedure.
Exactly. If you're talking to a work colleague, you might say, as a rule of thumb, I pitch the budget before lunch.
But you wouldn't use it when citing exact scientific measurements to your boss.
Definitely not. What about a blank slate?
You could contrast a blank slate with starting from scratch. Starting from scratch often implies rebuilding after a failure, whereas a blank slate is more opportunistic.
Yeah, so in an IELTS Speaking Part 2 response about a new project, saying the new initiative was a blank slate shows this great positive tonal mastery.
Let's look at to fulfill a premise.
That one needs to be distinguished from meeting a requirement, which is just transactional.
Right, fulfilling a premise means satisfying the foundational idea. So telling your boss, this prototype fulfills the premise of our original pitch, means it captured the actual spirit of the idea.
Then there's a comedic dilemma. You really have to isolate that this is specifically related to creating humor.
Contrast it with a moral dilemma. The stakes are totally different.
Absolutely. And for to commit to, contrast it with to agree to.
If you tell your boss, I agree to do this, it sounds a bit reluctant.
But saying, I am fully committed to this project, means you've formally decided to give it your absolute full effort.
Let's do to gauge a reaction.
Compare that to measuring an outcome. You measure an outcome with data, but you gauge a reaction by carefully observing how someone feels.
Like telling a colleague, I was trying to gauge the client's reaction, but he had a poker face.
Exactly. And finally, an off-limits subject.
You'd want to contrast that with confidential information. Confidential info is protected by rules, but an off-limits subject is just socially inappropriate to discuss.
Like warning a coworker that the manager's recent divorce is an off-limits subject at the holiday party.
Providing those contextual boundaries is just so critical.
It really is. And to solidify all this, we've put together a quick multiple-choice quiz based on these nuanced definitions that could be dropped right at the end of this lesson.
Let's run through it. For our listeners, we'll announce the options as Option A, Option B, and Option C.
And we'll repeat the phrase so you remember what we're defining.
Feel free to pause the critique here if you need to think about the answer before we reveal it.
All right, question 1. What is the meaning of the phrasal verb to narrow down?
Option A, to intentionally decrease the total amount of available physical space within a designated area.
Option B, to strategically reduce the total number of distinct possibilities or choices in a given situation.
Option C, to systematically lower the overall expectations regarding a highly complicated academic project.
Take a second to pause if you need to.
The correct answer for to narrow down is Option B.
Right, to strategically reduce the total number of distinct possibilities or choices in a given situation.
Moving to question 2. How is the idiom a blank slate best defined?
Option A, a scenario where you deliberately ignore completely previous instructions to avoid making errors.
Option B, a professional document that specifically outlines all the rigid rules for an upcoming assignment.
Or Option C, a unique situation where absolutely nothing has been decided or planned yet, offering a fresh start. Pause here if you need time.
And the answer for a blank slate is Option C.
A unique situation where absolutely nothing has been decided or planned yet, offering a fresh start.
Question 3. If you fulfill a premise, what exactly have you achieved? Option A, to successfully complete or strictly satisfy the foundational idea that a situation is built upon.
Option B, to purposely exaggerate a minor detail in order to dramatically improve a boring personal narrative.
Option C, to intentionally avoid answering a direct question by abruptly changing the overall conversational topic.
Pause if you need to think about fulfill a premise.
The answer is Option A.
Exactly. To successfully complete or strictly satisfy the foundational idea that a situation is built upon.
Question 4. Which of the following describes a comedic dilemma?
Option A, a highly controversial social statement that completely ruins the cheerful mood of a friendly gathering.
Option B, a difficult or deeply confusing situation specifically related to creating humor or making people laugh.
Option C, a surprisingly unexpected outcome that instantly resolves a long-standing tension between two colleagues.
Pause the critique if you need a moment.
For a comedic dilemma, the correct answer is Option B.
A difficult or deeply confusing situation specifically related to creating humor or making people laugh.
Halfway there. Question 5. What does it mean when a person decides to commit to an action?
Option A, To firmly promise a close friend that you will completely keep their highly sensitive personal secrets.
Option B, to reluctantly accept a challenging assignment while simultaneously searching for much easier alternatives.
Option C, to formally decide to do something completely and consistently, give it your absolute full effort and focus.
Go ahead and pause if you need to.
The answer for to commit to is option C.
Yes, to formally decide to do something completely and consistently, give it your absolute full effort and focus. Remember, option B was just agreeing, not committing.
Question 6. In a practical context, what constitutes a rule of thumb?
Option A, a highly practical and approximate general guideline strictly based on experience rather than measurement.
Option B.
A completely unbendable corporate regulation that strictly dictates the acceptable behavior of employees.
Option C.
A widely recognized mathematical formula utilized exclusively to calculate highly precise scientific data.
Feel free to pause here.
The correct answer for a rule of thumb is option A.
A highly practical and approximate general guideline strictly based on experience rather than measurement.
Question 7. What are you doing if you try to gauge a reaction?
Option A. To abruptly provoke an intense emotional response by heavily criticizing another person's core beliefs.
Option B. To carefully observe, accurately measure, or deeply judge how someone feels about something you just did.
Option C. To actively ignore the immediate facial expressions of your audience while delivering a formal speech.
Pause if you need time to gauge a reaction.
The answer is option B.
To carefully observe, accurately measure, or deeply judge how someone feels about something you just did.
And our final question, question 8. How is an off-limits subject best described?
Option A. A deeply philosophical concept that requires incredibly advanced academic knowledge to fully comprehend.
Option B. A highly specialized field of scientific study that remains completely inaccessible to the general public.
Option C. A conversational topic that is strictly not allowed to be discussed or is universally deemed inappropriate.
Pause the critique one last time if you need it.
And the answer for an off-limits subject is option C.
A conversational topic that is strictly not allowed to be discussed or is universally deemed inappropriate.
Having a quiz like that really forces the student to grapple with the exact nuances we've been talking about.
Absolutely. It's so much more effective than just reading a list of definitions.
So, to quickly recap the main points of our critique today. First, we identified the need to realign the practice questions, keeping them anchored to the comedic theme to maintain focus.
Second, we addressed the breakout rooms, suggesting scenario-based role-play prompts to boost engagement instead of just saying, discuss.
And third, we highlighted the necessity of explicitly defining the situational register and emotional weight of the vocabulary for these advanced learners.
The actionable suggestion here is to look for opportunities to weave your central theme through every single exercise, and always provide your learners with both the conversational context and the constraints they need to succeed.
We warmly invite you to implement these suggestions and submit your revised SpeakDuo lesson back in for a follow-up critique.
Thank you for sharing your work with us. This concludes the critique.